Alright guys, today's not much of a restoration or refurbishment as a how we did it and why we did it video. I was on YouTube, hey, and trying to look up to see how to cope some pipe together, but they had some on there on how to do a T-saddle, but not in a language I could understand, so here we go, let's get into it. The whole reason why this is happening is if you see this, let me get down here real close, that fitting fits that pipe pretty good. That's inch and an eighth. That's a cast fitting. Here is its brethren. I'm trying to do this with one hand, so bear with me. And it goes on this pipe, this tube, which should be inch and an eighth, but it's inch and a quarter. See that gap? That won't work. Reason why that won't work, actually it mounts like that, but it's got a big gap right there. The reason why that won't work is that is the seat mount to the bottom of the seat. And should I just go ahead and use that, force it on there, stress it, if it gets a crack, you do a hard landing on this thing, excuse me, you do a hard landing, that seat will come down. Now you're trying to control rudders, stick, and control flight and directional control, and you can't see over the dash because the seat dropped down the bottom, so it's probably not going to work out good. That'd be a bad thing. So, having said that, all that, let me get over here on the table and I'll show you what I did. Actually, I did try to find it on YouTube and couldn't do it. I don't know if that's a pipe fitters thing, union, or they just won't do it or what. But if you look at that fitting, and here's another one, if you look at it real close, it's a half. Actually, it's got two halves. So after they build it, then you just cut it in half like that. This is a 1-inch ID right here. The original one is inch and an eighth for this, for the seat rail. It's got a gusset in it. It's got a couple pieces of stock here on the side to clamp it together right there. There's more. This top piece is 45, let me get over here, you can see it. It's 45 this direction and 45 that direction. And the big pipe that stands on is 45 back in there, so that rail has to go through it that way, and also the rail that it sits on and attaches has to go through that way. There can't be any interference down in here. Here's what we come up with in steel. Cut a triangle piece off a piece of scrap steel I had laying around. That's our gusset. Cut this stock right here and put, let me turn it over so I can lay it, and put it on either side of here. Now that has to be straight, and it can't be leaned this way, or this way. So that's pretty rough. Then you got a cope going from a smaller ID pipe to a larger ID pipe, sitting on a piece of pipe that's been coped. Or 45. Here's another one that I hadn't cleaned up yet or sandblasted, but it's tacked together and ready to go. So start out all this mess with finding some quadrants. How do you find quadrants? You gotta find the circumference on this pipe. So get yourself a piece of paper, roll it around, and that'll, wrong one, my bad. So, get yourself a piece of paper, roll it around the pipe, mark it, and that will give you the circumference of the pipe. Now you've got it. Now you can mark your 4 sides of your pipe off, all 4 sides. How you get your 4 sides, you got the circumference of the paper, fold the paper in half, and then fold it in half again. Unfold it, and then mark where the folds are, And now you got your 4 sections or quadrants of your circumference of your pipe. This is the 1 inch. This is the 1.25 inch, which my pipe that was replaced on there, tubing needs, and that's what this one is. This is the 1.25 inch, so I can mark the quadrants off on that. So now we got our quadrants made. We know that this tube was going to sit halfway. If you look at it, the way it's built, it sits halfway over the larger diameter. So the ID of the smaller tube right here was 1 inch, so I need to go back a 1/2 inch. So I go back a 1/2 inch. Okay. Now, about my cope. So then I take my larger diameter, coming off of one of my quadrants, my center quadrant, center this thing on this, trace my outline, and there it is. Move it over. Got to line up my marks. There's my other one, and there's my other one. I take this. This is hard to do with one hand. Roll this around the pipe. Sorry, trying to square this thing up. Get my paper square and just mark it out, and there's my cope. When I do that, cut that out, put that on that pipe, because now I was only covering half of it. Now, my other thing is this pipe was actually cut too. I know that was this line right here from this edge was back a 1/2 inch. So that's why I only went back a 1/2 inch, because I knew that's where that pipe was going to sit. There's my cope for my big pipe right there. This pipe, once it gets coped, is going to set over that one. Get all that done and get it close. And then take this tool right here. Is the way I did this. There's a lot of different ways to do this. This is the way I come up with it. So got this one going that way. Got this one going that way. That's about how it's supposed to sit. Opposite of that. Sorry. That one goes down and that one sits halfway. So that's the way they're supposed to line up right there. And got them coped in. And then just tacked it together right there. How did I get these done? That was a good question. That was a bit of a challenge. So without the gusset being on here, set this thing down in there, figured out how long I wanted these to be, cut me some stock off this material, put that on over here, figured out where the middle distance, I had to figure out this dimension right here on this pipe. This actually sits in the middle of it. So I had to figure out that dimension and then take this dimension divided by 2, which gave me these spacers. Spacered it out, put my stock in there, put that in there, squared it up, and just tacked it. And that's what I came up with. That's my deal today. I know it's kind of short and rough. I was trying to do this, holding camera with one hand, trying to describe it with the other. Tools you're going to need. Actually, this is a nice one. This is a reamer, which will chamfer the inside when you do your cuts. It'd be nice to have a disc, that sits on a bench, and that way you can get, when you cut them, you can make them flat, just grind them flat. I had to use the cutoff wheel and put it up to it. I had calipers out, I had the contour comb out, and squares, the welding magnet, of course the material that you're going to use, and straight edge, sharp marker, tape, small prayer, some wrenches, and a jig, whatever it is you're going to do. But yeah, on the internet, I don't speak the language that they're trying to describe how to do this. They make it look awful easy. That's not. That's 2 dissimilar diameter pipes trying to go together and cope and come up with something like that. But that's today's video, or this week's video. Maybe we'll get going and we can do them faster. Oh, forgot to mention there was the dimensions on the original fitting and how it was made. So yeah, this kind of matters. And that's it. See you coming up on 10 minutes. Y'all take care. See you next week.